Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group members, stakeholders, and partners. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Huda Al-Fawqani, Director Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group at the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today, the introduction to the Capital Coalitions. We are hosting the session as part of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group flagship initiative development with the support of the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi and in partnership with our esteemed knowledge partners, Sustainability to Action and Capital Coalitions. Welcome again, and for those joining us for the first time, I would like to start by providing some background information about Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group, ADSG. Was established in 2008 by the Environment Agency as an affiliation and partnership initiative to promote sustainability management in the Emirate by providing learning and knowledge sharing opportunities for all. The Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group knowledge sharing platforms like today play an important role in advancing our mission by increasing awareness, facilitate knowledge exchange, and build networks and dialogue. Through these platforms, we seek to enhance understanding of sustainability challenges and to help foster collaboration and implementation of enhanced sustainable good practices in Abu Dhabi. And I would like to share with you that recently through our news, we launched Abu Dhabi Sustainability Innovation and Ideas Register to increase collaboration among our network. And I would like to invite you to know more about the initiative and to participate in this initiative by watching this video together.
Hi there, my name is Mariam Al-Zaabi and I'm excited to invite you and participate in our Sustainability Innovation and Ideas Register. This initiative is intended to capture, evaluate and implement groundbreaking ideas and promote sustainability in Abu Dhabi, whether it's leveraging AI for sustainability, natural capital, waste reduction, conserving water and biodiversity. We would like to hear more about your innovative solutions. We aim to document and track these initiatives to promote and foster collaboration among our members. So, by working together, we can drive continuous improvement and better the state of our environment. Join us in this exciting new journey towards a sustainable future. Submit your ideas today and be the change you wish to see.
So we welcome your participation through the contacts email that we will share with you. So as I mentioned earlier, our session today is part of Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group and Capital Coalition flagship launch. It's intended to ADSG members and partners organization committed to driving systemic change through a common framework and coordinated approach. Also, the flagship is a knowledge hub around the capital approach and natural capital valuation in UAE, focusing on improving business relationship with the natural world and human well-being. And I'm also pleased to present the timeline for the project, which will start in the coming weeks till the Q2 of next year. And I would like to take this opportunity to mention that the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group is always open to welcome new members who are committed to champion sustainability in Abu Dhabi. In the next slide, you can find the information of the team at ADSG to share your interest to join ADSG works and activities. Without further ado, I now have the honor to welcome our session speakers and to introduce the session. I hand over to our knowledge partners, Sandra Anani, Director, Sustainability to Action, Louise Amand, Senior Manager, Capital Coalition, and Dr. Marta Santamaria, Founder and Director of Integrating Capitals. Our expert speakers will offer valuable insight and inspiring work of Capital Coalition and how the initiative helped to understand and manage value creation in our societies, economy, and environment. Thank you once again for being here today, and we are excited about the discussion and networking opportunity. And now I over to Sandra to moderate the moderator of the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Huda. What a great introduction and what great initiatives the ADSG is launching and continues to collaborate with various stakeholders and business partners. I'm thrilled and honored to be the moderator for this panel of esteemed knowledge experts. This topic of the Capitals Coalition and the Four Capitals approach is very close to my heart. We have the privilege of being the UAE regional hub for the Capitals Coalition, and we always try to champion the Four Capitals approach. So we are thrilled to be part of this collaboration. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, or indeed good morning or good evening, depending on where you are, because I know we have people registered from around the world. Welcome. Introduction to the Capitals Coalition is the title of our webinar today, and I'm thrilled that you are joining us as we work with the Capitals Coalition and its mission to transform the way decisions are made, and by including the value provided by nature, people and society, and not only just to produce capital. I have great pleasure to introduce our panelists today. So allow me to share with you who our esteemed panelists are as they bring a wealth of knowledge and experience on this topic. Our first speaker, Louise Amand, she's the Senior Manager at the Capitals Coalition. Louise leads the education strategy at the Capitals Coalition, developing capacity building opportunities to equip institutions with the knowledge and skills needed to transform our economy. She supports companies on their learning journey for improved environmental and social footprint. Among other projects, she developed business guidance with the UN Environment Programme. She has 10 years of experience promoting socio-ecological transition by conciliating production, human well-being, and environmental regeneration. Previously, she was a consultant for the IUCN and the Brazilian Public Water Agency, managing ecosystem services projects. She has a degree in communications and a master's in sustainable development. Welcome, Louise. I'd like now to introduce our second speaker, Dr. Marta Santamaria. She is the founder and director of Integrating Capitals. Marta has worked extensively in the sustainability transformation of several economic sectors, including the energy, food, built, environment, and finance sectors. She has over 20 years of experience in assessing the value provided by nature, people, and society to inform and transform decision-making, which is really critical and a big topic for us to cover today. Previously, Dr. Marta was Senior Director at the Capitals Coalition, where she was leading and advancing approaches to measure and value impacts and dependencies on nature, people, and society. She's the author of an extensive list of guidance and training materials, which she has been promoting across the world. She has been advising several leading organizations, including the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, TNFDs, Science-Based Targets Network, SBTN, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the FAO, the Impact Management Platform, the G7 Impact Task Force, the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, and the Valuing Accounting Network. She is currently an ambassador of the Capitals Coalition. Welcome, Dr. Marta. Wow, I mean, I'm so excited about this. We're going to talk about so many exciting things in this panel. There's going to be discussions on COP26. There's going to be discussions on the Capitals approach. There's going to be case studies, success stories, lessons learned. It's just such a privilege to bring this webinar to everyone, and thank you all for joining us. I'm just going to give a quick overview of the today's session. So today, this is a very high-level agenda. We're going to divide it into 3 parts, really. I've already introduced our panelists, and I will hand over to them in one moment. But just to let you know that we welcome your questions, we need your questions, and we need your engagement. So I'd be very grateful if you could pop your questions in the chat box. My colleagues and I will be working on filtering through them and either answering them if we can in the chat box immediately, or we can pick them up and pose them to questions to the speakers. So if you have a specific question to a specific speaker or panelist, please flag that in your question area. So it's a question for Dr. Marta, or it's a question for Huda, or it's a question for Louise, and then we will direct that question. So as I said, we're going to start with each of the panelists presenting. We will then go into a brief Q&A session where I have a couple of questions that I've cooked up for our panelists, and then we'll go to questions to the floor. So without further ado, I'm very much keen to kick off this webinar. I would like to give the floor to Louise. Louise, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you so much, Huda, and thank you so much to all of you for being here today to learn about the Capital approach. It's a huge pleasure for us from Capitals Coalition to share this and to foster collaboration, to foster learning, so we can move towards a fairer and more just world. So I will start by presenting who we are at Capitals Coalition. We are a global collaboration transforming the way. How we do that? We want to support the inclusion of the value provided by nature, people and society in all decisions. And how we do that? It's through collaboration. We have more than 450 organizations at the core from the entire system. So from business, from finance, from government, but also from standard setter, from accounting, from international organization. And you can see on the infinity loop that how we want to move the system is through a flow of information. When business assess the impact and dependency, they commit to target setting, they transform the way they act, and they disclose information. This support also the financial system and actors to also assess performance and allocate better investment. And this also support government to understand the performance of the financial and business sector and to change the rule and incentivize the good practice. We are glad to have more than 18 Capitals Hub, so local organization as Sustainability to Action and ADSG in UAE, but in many other parts of the world. We currently have 2 international protocols, the Natural Capital Protocol and the Social and Human Protocol, and we are now launching in September a new integrated protocol. If we can move to the next slide on our history, we really come from the United Nations Environmental Programme. They have a project called the Economic of Ecosystem and Biodiversity, and they observed that there were a need to engage with business. And it's why previously we were TEEB, the Economic of Ecosystem and Biodiversity, for Business Coalition. And then we launched the Natural Capital Protocol, and we became the Natural Capital Coalition. And then we launched the Social and Human Capital Protocol, and so we also had the Social and Human Capital Coalition to finally merge, to understand that we need to work in an integrated manner to consider the value of nature and people and society together. It's why in 2020 we became Capitals Coalition. Now about our strategy. So we understand that we have collectively, as a humanity, a challenge that most of decisions are based usually on financial capital, but that's not the only capital that exists. There is also natural capital, social capital, human capital. And so our strategy is that our ambition is that by 2030, the majority of business, financial organization, and government include those values into their decision making. And this will deliver a more just and sustainable and fairer world. And so up until now, we were preparing the ground. Now we understand that we are accelerating the transformation. On the curve, we are in the middle with influence TNFD, the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosure, to understand that, yes, it is needed to report impact and dependency on nature. We influence other space as the CSRD, a regulation in Europe that asks their business in Europe to disclose impact and dependency. And so we are progressively moving from we could to we should to we must have decision based on the value of all capitals. If we go to the next slide, we share a bit more about our strategy. We want to change the math, the way accounting works. What are our measures of success? We want to change the conversation by having more and more audience and momentum as a key event to embed impact and dependency, risk and opportunity analysis in business day-to-day work. And we want also to change the rule, so influence the way regulation are set up and incentive. And we do that through consolidation of quality of content, to standardize, simplify, to educate through capacity building, to fill the knowledge and skill gap, as we will do that in the flagship program, and to advocate, to build a stronger environment. On the potential benefit of a natural capital assessment, it's really important to know why a business should conduct an assessment. And what we have seen from a previous case and our experience is that it really helped to inform business core strategy. It can also help a company, maybe your company, to achieve sustainability goals. It could improve disclosure and reporting to be more transparent with shareholder, investor, consumer, and others. It can help to inform investment priority based on rate of return on financial capital, but also natural capital and the other capital. We can see also that in some cases it can really help to enhance accounting practice and have what we call nature in the balance sheet. It can also improve risk management by turning those risks related to maybe lack of natural resources or a drought or others into opportunity to innovate. And finally, I want to close this small section by sharing a bit about COP16. So COP16 is a very important event for us and for all of us in the world. It will happen in Cali, in Colombia, in October. And there, governments around the world will gather together with other stakeholders as Capitals Coalition, our partner, but also businesses, to really move forward with the global biodiversity framework that has been agreed on the last COP15. And so government will review the progress made on the implementation on what we call the biodiversity plan and the level of alignment between that biodiversity plan at an international level and local national biodiversity strategy and action plan. We from Capitals Coalition, we are very happy to go there, and many of our hubs will be also present. We are collaborating on many side events with Business for Nature, TNFD, and others. And currently, we are collecting expression of interest from business, maybe your business, that might be interested in attending COP16, physically or virtually. And if you have 5 minutes, I really encourage you to take the short survey to inform us if you are interested to be there, because maybe we can meet and collaborate in person. I also want to take this opportunity to inform you that ADSG has a sustainability and innovation and idea registration form to support the discussion forward for COP16 and beyond. So please also, if you have time, contribute to the change of the conversation. With this, thank you very much, and I hand it over to Marta.
Thank you so much for this introduction, Liz, and thank you so much to the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Group and to the Capitals Coalition for inviting me to be here today with all of you. So if we move to the next slide, my presentation is going to be divided in two blocks. If we move to the next slide, the first part, I'm going to be introducing you key concepts to help you to understand the value and how the materials developed by the Capitals Coalition can help you in your progressing in your sustainability journey. And also I'm going to be building the case to explain why all these things are really important for us. So as Luis was talking about, he was talking about the capitals, he was talking about people, nature, society. So it's good to start with defining all of these concepts and giving you an overview. So when we are talking about the capitals, we are referring to the natural capital or nature that basically refers to the stock of renewable and non-renewable resources that produce a yield of benefits for people. When we are talking about human capital or people, we are referring specifically to all those knowledge, skills, competencies, and attributes that are embodied in people. We also rely on the social capital that is like the glue that keeps everything together, thanks to our networks, together with certain norms, values, and a shared understanding. And finally, we rely on the produce capital that refers to the financial resources and the man-made goods that our businesses are really used to account. And what we are intending is to account for all of these elements because we rely in all of them. So moving to the next slide. Here we wanted to explain you why these capitals are important. Is because all of them are stocks or resources that store value. They produce this value through the production of some flows that results on benefits both for the society and for the business. We are very used to use this mindset of stock, flow, and benefit when we are accounting, for example, for the produce capital. We have equipment and machinery. We recognize that they are stock, that they help our businesses to produce a flow of products and services that we can sell and our companies can have revenues. Similarly happens with all of the capitals. So if we take, for example, the natural capital, we were saying that the natural capital are the stock of renewable and non-renewable resources. So they produce a flow of benefits called ecosystem services, and they result in benefits for us if we use them as businesses, but also for for the rest of the society. And when we use these capitals, we also erode them. So we need to make sure that we are replenishing them to make sure that they continue to produce that flow and to produce benefits. So any of our decisions about how we use the capitals will affect all this cycle of production of benefits. So if we move to the next slide. It's important, and what we are trying to help companies is to understand how companies interact with these capitals. Here I'm bringing a simplified example for an agribusiness. So an agribusiness, as any other business, for example, if we go to the produce capital on the top, depends on machinery. We need machinery, as I was saying, to produce goods and generate revenues. But we also depend on other capitals. If we go to the left, for example, on human capital, we depend on the workforce. We need workers, and we need workers that are qualified and have experience in their field and knowledge. So it's the same mentality as we are using with the produce capital. So as you can see, when we are talking about dependencies, we have all the capitals that produce something that we have inflows towards the companies. If we move to the next slide, it shows the other way in which companies can interact with the capitals, and the flows, the arrows now change. So it's our activities as companies could be affecting the capitals. If we, for example, focused on the bottom part on the natural capital, in this case, an agribusiness could be having a positive impact through ecosystem restoration, but it could have a negative impact through, for example, the production of pollution. So it's important that we think both in the dependencies and in the impacts, both positive and negative impacts, and positive impacts and dependencies. If we move to the next slide, we try to show here why this is relevant. What I'm telling to you, all these concepts are very relevant for the businesses. because if we enter into this figure, if you can see on the left-hand side, the business, as I was saying, the business has impacts and dependencies. You can see through the arrow in all the 4 capitals that you can see on the top. Businesses are not the only one that impact and depend on the capitals. We can see also the society on the other side that impact and depend on the capitals. As a result of these impacts and dependencies, there are costs and benefits, both for the society and for the business. So in the moment in which we are operating in a context in which there are costs and benefits, businesses on the left-hand side are exposed to have some risk and opportunities that could affect their performance. And as the business receive resources from the financial sector that you can see on the bottom part, those risks and opportunities can be transferred to the financial sector. So that's why we are trying to simplify this in a figure. But if we move to the next slide, we see that there is a growing evidence that this figure in which we are trying to explain these concepts, it's a reality. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the almond industry in California is experiencing a lot of decrease in their production because of the decline of the population of bees. This is increasing their cost in a 13%. That's a significant increase in cost because of an ecosystem services that we before were kind of assuming that it was done by nature, and we were not caring about our dependency on these pollination services. On the right-hand side, we have other example of the consequences in Taiwan. They are producing microchips, and they have a high consumption on water. And they have been going for years through persistent droughts. And that is affecting the whole industry of production of microchips in Taiwan. That is a big risk, not just for a specific company, but also a systemic risk that could affect the whole world. So we have to start understanding that these dependencies and impacts on all the capitals could be affecting our businesses. If we move to the next slide, as in the previous one, I saw you a couple of examples focused on natural capital, but this is also happening across human and social capital. These are a couple of evidence that I found that I thought it could be relevant for you. For example, on the left-hand side, we see that long-lasting racial and ethnic disparities in the United States is causing economic losses of trillions over 30 years. So this is something that we usually don't think that things outside the company could affect our performance, but they are affecting, and there is evidence about it. On the right-hand side, there is some evidence from the World Bank on the consequences on the GDP from social unrest. The social unrest are the kind of mobilization and radicalization of movements happening after some drastic economic or social changes. And when there is an event of social unrest, the GDP of a country could have a decrease of 1%. That is really significant. So this is just not to bring you into the negative mode today, because we have solutions, but is to be conscious that this is a reality and our businesses needs to start understanding and having information, measuring and value these impacts and dependencies to help our businesses to manage them better. If we move to the next slide, we wanted to show you now the frameworks that the Capitals Coalition are putting in place and offering for all the community to help all the community to have that understanding of the impacts and dependencies, the risks and opportunities, and help the community to manage them better. So if we move to the next slide, we can see here, the first one is the Natural Capital Protocol. As Luis mentioned, the Capitals Coalition published two kind of big documents. One is the Natural Capital Protocol, the other one is the Social and Human Capital Protocol. So here you can see the Natural Capital Protocol. Both of them follow the same structure. So basically, as you can see, there are 4 colors. Each of these sections are trying to respond to a critical question. The first one is why these capitals are important to me as a business. The second one is defining the scope, what is relevant for me. So within each of the capitals, which are the aspects that I should be, which impacts and dependencies should I be focusing on? The third one is how do I measure and value? How do I have the information that help to inform my decisions? And the final one is the what next. So once I have a good understanding, I have that information, what I'm going to change to help to manage better these risks and opportunities. If we move to the next slide, here you can see the same framework. So are the four big stages with the 9 steps around of the social and human capital protocol. They are the same to the previous one that you saw, but in this one, what we are trying to illustrate is that this process is very iterative. So although we present it in a linear way to be able to kind of help the reader understand the process and the journey, it's an iterative process in which sometimes you progress and you go back, and once you have a good understanding, maybe you want to expand your scope. So it's something that you have to do regularly. If we move to the next slide, I wanted to give you a bit of flavor just to open your appetite to open the documents. So I'm going to give you a bit of flavor of each of these 4 stages. So the first question that we have to respond is understanding why the capitals are important for us. And as I was saying, we are moving in a context of risk and opportunities, and we have to understand which are the sources of those risks and opportunities, and they could be different. As you can see here, they could be due to operational reasons, because these capitals are scarce, and due to the scarcity, we could be, as companies, experiencing operational costs or even operational benefits if we learn how to manage them and reduce our consumption. But the risk and opportunities could come also because we are operating in a context that is regulated by governments. So that regulation could affect us and increase our risk and opportunities. We also depend on the finance from the financing community, and they are currently putting a lot of attention on driving those resources toward more sustainable companies. So if we manage if we learn to manage this properly, we can have benefits from the financial community. We are also exposed to what the evolution from our demand, our clients, through to reputational risk, for example. And we are living in a society, as we were saying, a society in which there are inequalities, persistent inequalities, and that could create responses from the society that could affect our business. So it's important that at the beginning, we understand which are the risks and opportunities and which are the sources of those risks and opportunities. If we move to the next slide, then, as I was saying, we need to understand within the whole space of, this is an example for natural capital, within the whole space of natural capital, which are the most material aspects to me. So they could be dependencies, they could be impacts, as you can see this in this matrix. And also it's relevant and could be useful to think beyond my own operations and go across the value chain. So each of these layers in the matrix that you can see respond to a stage of the value chain. So with this analysis, you can start discussing internally and understanding, okay, for example, on the right-hand side, do I have more exposure to risk because of my water consumption or because of my air pollution or my waste generation? So it's trying to get information based on the reality of what is more relevant to you to focus your attention when you are trying to understand and measure and value those impacts and dependencies. If we move to the next slide, one of the important things is to move beyond measurement and really go towards understanding the relative importance of these impacts and dependencies. So that is what we refer as valuation. As probably if you are working on sustainability, if you are coming from the environmental side, you are used to collect information or to see information about emissions. What we are proposing here is to go beyond. For example, if we have information about emissions, air pollutant emissions, what we are proposing is that you go beyond and you understand which are the consequences of those emissions on the capital, in this case, the natural capital, because there would be a decrease in the quality of air. And that decrease in the quality of air, if we go beyond even, will have some consequences. That is what we refer as impacts on the health of people. And we can value that because there will be a decrease in the income of those people affected. Companies will experience a decrease in their productivity because of the impacts on the health of workers. So we can value that in physical terms. We can say the number of people that is affected, or we could even put a monetary value to those impacts on health. So that is what we are trying to promote with these protocols, is to identify those impacts on dependencies and try to value them to understand how important they are for both for the business and for the society. If we move to the next slide, we are arriving to the last stage of the protocols. What I was saying is, once we have the information, we can act. As some of you probably saw the video that it was at the beginning. Here, this wheel is showing the high-level actions for businesses in terms of nature. This could be applicable also for social and human capital. So basically, when you are applying the protocol, you are doing an assessment. You are covering the win part of the wheel. So now you have the information, you identify your impacts or dependencies, you understand how material are those risks and opportunities to you. And now the next action that you could undertake could be, for example, to assume targets and decide, continuing from the example before, I want to reduce my impacts on health from air pollution in 20% in X years. So you can now, with information, set a target or your ambition for the future. Once you have a target, you need to look at your business and think, how I'm going to transform my business. You could be, for example, adopting renewable energies that have less emissions. So using other fuels that are cleaner to produce to consume the energy that you need in your processes. And as you can see around the wheel, we have another action that is disclose. You can disclose at any time. You can disclose the information about your risk and opportunities when you conducted your assessment. You can disclose your targets, and you can disclose and inform your, for example, your investors about the transformation that you are taking to become more sustainable. So if we move to the next slide, this is kind of a quick screenshot from the Capitals Coalition website for you to understand other resources. I have been talking about the protocols, but we have other guides and supplements that are more with a sectorial focused to help you understand in a specific sector, which could be the material elements, with the material impacts and dependencies, etc. We also have some publications about, for example, focus more on accounting and how to move all this information into accounting frameworks. And we also have case studies. The case studies could help you to understand how different companies and peers are implementing this kind of approaches and how useful they were for them. So it could help you to build a case internally. We also have a lot of training resources. Luis is leading on that, and it's great that the flagship program is going to offer you possibilities to improve and to gain skills on the Capitals approach. So I think that I'm entering into my last slide. If we move to the next one, what I wanted to show you in the next slide is responding to how business can apply this. What I would say is that this is a process, that it's a journey. It's very small, so I hope that then when you have the slides, you can get into detail. What I wanted to show is that for each of these actions that you have on the left-hand side, the assess, the commit, the transform, and the disclose, you're going to start with something small at beginner level. You understand how things work, and then you go into more progressing and a higher ambition till the point in which you systematize these processes. So maybe you can start with an application, a specific plant, and do an assessment of your dependencies. But then you can increase and expand to the impacts, and then you can build an account, as some companies are already doing it, and Luis will run us through some of the examples. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the discussion later. Luis, I pass it to you.
Thank you so much, Marta. And thank you to all of you who are listening carefully. I always, when I listen to those kind of presentation, wonder how this is applied by business. That might be also your question, how this can be useful to my situation, how I can bring that knowledge and transform the way decisions are made in my situation. So I'm glad to now present you some case study, real world example that might inspire you. If you go to the next slide, you can see that there are many business applications of those protocols. So there is a case study database on our website with hundreds of examples that you can look at. And we see 5 main applications, but there are others. And sometimes also you can have a business case that has many applications at the same time. As you know, evaluate impact and dependency and assess risk and opportunities, one. Another is also to use that methodology to compare options and transform outcomes. Or maybe you want to have a more direct and really strong accounting process by estimating the total net impact value with monetary terms and commit to targets. Something that might be interesting also for you is assessing impact on stakeholder, on worker, on the value chain. What's your business providing as experience to your stakeholder? And indeed, one business application that is frequently used is to improve internal and external communication and reporting. Can go to the next slide. And here I'm bringing a materiality assessment. So Marta provided you with an understanding of what is a materiality assessment. Here is a real case. So again, when a business is starting a case, they know that they have many impact and dependency on nature and people. How to choose the most important one is a real question. How to prioritize action. A materiality assessment helps that, to know where impact and dependency are most significant and where you should act upon. So here Forico is from Tasmania, and it's a large company who has a lot of lands and produce wood and paper and fiber. So they list the impact and dependency. You can see carbon sequestration, greenhouse gas emission, water pollutants, solid waste, and others. On dependency, they know they are dependent on energy, on water, on land use, and so on. And so after an extensive internal consultation, but also consultation with external stakeholder, they attribute a color to each element with orange. Yes, this is likely to be significant. A little bit more orange, yellow. This is potentially significant, and yellow, unlikely to be significant. And so they did this materiality assessment. And at the end, they decide what they will include into their financial year reporting, because this was led by the financial department. And so you can see, yes, they include carbon sequestration as key impact to include in the financial year, and so on. The same for habitat for animal and plants, water, and so on. You can go to the next slide. And so this is the first step to know what is material. Then here we have a business example on quantitative valuation. So Yorkshire Water is a water company based in the UK, and they use the Natural Capital Protocol and the Social and Human Protocol to make a decision. They wanted to know what are the best use of the recreation space around the reservoir, the water reservoir. And so they thought of 5 options: to have an inclusive environment, and sustainable forestry. And for those 5 options, they decided to measure and to value carbon emission removed from the atmosphere, a positive impact, quality adjusted life year. This is a health impact where we estimate the gain of life in numbers and the number of jobs created. So all positive impact. You can see that this can be framed like this. And what was really nice here is that they did nice infographics with the food, with the calendar, and with the wallet to show the number of jobs created. And so you can easily see that the second option, active recreation, is removing a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, that is creating a lot of health and quality adjusted life year generated, 4.4, and it's creating the higher number of jobs, 10 on all the options. So this assessment helped them to take the right decision. If you can go to the next slide. This is a monetary evaluation example. So it's quite an advanced case with an integrated profit and loss account. That was driven by Eostar, a small and medium company who sell organic produce. They compared their organic production with non-organic or conventional farming practice. And they wanted to quantify the true cost of both models. And so they evaluate with different methodology and measure and monetize impact on livelihood, on health, on soil quality, on water, and on climate with the greenhouse gas protocol, measuring carbon emission. And so on the graph, you can see on the orange, this is Eostar, and on gray, it's the non-organic production. You can see for livelihood, it was hard for them to estimate the positive impact of the other non-organic production. So they were quite transparent. But on health, we can see that the production for them has a little negative impact, but the negative impact on health of non-organic production was much higher. They could also demonstrate that they have a positive approach and regenerative approach to soil with a positive impact with a monetary value associated with their own production and a small negative impact on non-organic. For water, it's quite similar, and for climate, we can see that both has carbon emission, but the Eostar model has a little bit less emission. So this is great to communicate to investors, for example. If you can go to the next slide, and I will be quick on that, so we have time for discussion, but this is basically qualitative assessment from the financial department. So really quickly, BNP Paribas indicator of their portfolio and their seafood retailer performance. So they assess target and commitment, participation and stakeholder engagement, transparency, risk management, biodiversity protection, and performance. And they attribute a positive and neutral or negative color coding to each performance for each of their clients. And this, at the end, was translated into a bonus-malus element to know if the client, so the seafood producer, was performing above or below their peer. If you can go to the next slide. I will conclude with two quick examples from India. One is from Arvind, from the textile industry, and they wanted to evaluate the human and ecological cost of water using a relation with the kilogram of seed cotton produced. So again, it was an option comparison between Better Cotton Principal Initiative and conventional farming. And the results show 49% less damage to human health and ecosystem quality using Better Cotton. Finally, Go for Fresh, they wanted to, again, an Indian company, they wanted to communicate more efficiently the positive impact of their business model. They are a food retailer online, but with a direct relationship with their farmer. And so the result is that they compared their practice to conventional practice, and they find that they have less 10% of decrease in food loss, 18% reduction in production cost, 7.5 increase in farmer incomes level, which is quite good also, and 14% reduction in production cost because they use less chemical inputs. So with this is a lot of good case study. I hope it provides you with inspiration, with motivation to really join us in this movement, to maybe create interest into your own company, to start your business case, to join the flagship program with ADSG and us next year, because as you can see, an assessment is really supporting better decision making and better information. If you can go to the next slide, I think I'm passing on back to Sandra.
Thank you so much, Louise. And Dr. Marta, thank you for your fantastic, inspiring, motivating, and also thought-provoking slides and case studies and arguments around how we as businesses in our region, in the Middle East, in the Gulf, in Abu Dhabi, in the UAE, how we can start to catch on to the great work that the Capitals Coalition is doing, and how this great work can actually help transform our decision making. So I'm inviting the floor now to the audience. If you've got any questions, please post. But I'm going to selfishly start with two questions of my own, if I may. Dr. Marta, I have a question for you. So now we've looked at the concept, we've looked at the frameworks, we've seen some case studies. How do you see the Capitals Coalition aim to integrate natural, social, and human capitals into decision making? How do you see that happening?
Yeah. So mainly through two kind of drivers. The first one is to give visibility to something that, yeah, is difficult to be recognized. No, we cannot manage what we cannot measure. So in this way, we are helping companies to understand things that if you go to your board and you say that you depend on the bees, that is really difficult to be kind of, okay, and so what? If you tell them because of a decrease on the populations of bees, we have an increase in cost because we need to import pollination services, that starts to kind of help them to materialize and to give visibility to a problem. The second one is to have useful information. So in that example, when we are moving towards the evaluation, we are starting to have more meaningful and useful information about the relevance of these things. So if we can tell them, as in the example of the almond industry, we are going to have an increase of the 30% on our cost, that is meaningful to them. So we are starting to move in the sustainability space from just talking about a lot of metrics and things in buckets to something that is moving towards the risk. The risk is something that the financial teams, the finance teams in the companies, they really understand very well. They could use it in the conversations with investors. So moving towards valuation, it is a big kind of conceptual steps. And sometimes when we are valuing the impacts to population, we don't have in itself the value of the risk. When I was explaining the example of the impact of air pollution on health, the impact on the health doesn't give you the value of the risk, but it's giving you a driver of that risk. If you are affecting the population, the governments could start implementing some regulation that affects you. The finance that your investors could be asking, your consumers could be decreasing their demand and moving towards more sustainable producers. So that's why I think that what we are helping is to break that silo of the sustainability teams to get into the discussions of the rest of the teams that are taking the decisions. So, and also the monetary valuation, it talks the same language as those finance teams working forever and the boards. If you go to the board with as an impact and an integrated profit and loss accounts, they are used to manage that kind of accounts and information. So that's why it's way much more meaningful for them to start taking discussions about something that it was invisible before, and with this kind of approaches is becoming more integrated and visible into the discussions and the business strategies. That is how, based on my experience in the companies implementing this, I think that is the way in which is really getting a hook into decision making.
Dr. Marta, thank you. That was a fantastic response. And it really helps us to understand how the ADSG flagship on the Four Capitals approach that is starting soon really helps to link how companies perform, how companies design their strategies, and how they measure the true value and the true metrics that their company is performing to in a way that actually is more meaningful for a sustainable future. This very much aligns with the UAE government's vision around how companies need to take accountability. We all know about the impacts and the risks, but we also know that it's the private sector that must drive this. So I'm hoping that our colleagues who are joining us in this webinar and who will be joining the flagship program will take this as a fantastic opportunity for them to adapt and to adopt these frameworks to help them to engage and to actually communicate in a meaningful way with their boards and also with their stakeholders and shareholders as the UAE is diversifying its economy away from oil and gas and integrating towards a more balanced approach for the future. So I think your answer really hit the spot. Thank you, Dr. Marta. And now I'm sorry, Louise, but I have a question for you too, if I may. So Louise, having given the great context for business and what the Capital Coalition offers, what do you think policymakers can do to support the objectives of the Capitals Coalition?
Thank you for that excellent question. And I was involved in the past in government dialogue, so I really enjoy also that topic. Thank you. I want to start with a quote I've seen this morning from a CEO in France, from Occitane, and he say, "We as a company are urging government to urgently accelerate the transition to nature positive and net zero economy through ambitious and forward-thinking legislation." I think that's the perfect quote for answering your question. I think both government, business, finance, all of us, we have a responsibility in moving the system where we are in for a sustainable future. So how can policymakers support our objective? Many ways. It depends also on the level of decision making. If it's an individual that is in the government and working on biodiversity, they can influence the biodiversity COP16, advocating for more ambitious and also supporting the National Biodiversity Action Plan and really be rigorous about it. If they're active in more the legislation piece and part national law, maybe a policy decision maker can have ambition for legislation that support business in having better measure of the impact of dependency and on acting more positively for regenerating biodiversity, for example. And also to provide incentives for those who are doing the goods. I think it's really important to reward best practice. But policymakers can also ask for more transparent annual report from business for materiality assessment, for example. Maybe pushing forward natural capital accounting. We know also that at international level, we have the UN who ask natural capital accounting to all government, and specifically this sit with the statistical department of each country, which has to measure and to value natural capital locally from a national perspective. So also policymakers can use those information from statistical department to know where they should push forward efforts toward, providing more value to nature and people. So there are many ways policymakers can engage and can support those objectives, but always collaboration between different sectors, from policy side, but also from business, from finance, and from standard setter. It's really a key element to push this forward.
Thank you so much, Louise. I can't see any questions from the audience yet, but we are also a little bit running tight on time. I think that was a fantastic answer and hopefully a lot of food for thought for our attendees. This webinar will, of course, be shared on YouTube, and there will be news bulletins coming out with links once this is published. Once again, this webinar is part of a series of engagement and awareness raising for the Natural, Social and Human Capitals for Business flagship program that the ADSG is running. We invite people's interest. Please join us. Please do let us know how you want to participate. I believe we've just received a question. Do we have time? We're actually run out of time, but I will allow it if you will indulge me, please, our panelists. How do you determine the most suitable method of impacts valuation? There are two business examples shown in the presentation with monetary and quantitative valuations.
Yeah, very briefly, I would say that it depends on the objective of your assessment and the information, the decision that you want to inform. So sometimes just the qualitative evaluation could help you to have the findings that you need. But sometimes if you progress towards the monetary evaluation, you can do other kind of analysis because you can then compare different impact categories because you have the same unit. So it depends a lot in your resources and the objective that you want to take. But if the quantitative is enough, you can stop there. So that would be briefly. I don't know, Luis, if you want to expand.
No, that's excellent. And I encourage you to join us on the flagship because we will dive into this kind of question.
Thank you so much for indulging me and allowing us to go a little bit over time. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I think on the next slide, we are inviting any interest in the flagship. Please do contact my colleagues, Mohammed Al-Dhahri and Mariam Al-Zaabi, if you want to express your interest in joining the flagship. And if you would kindly take a few moments to give us feedback on this webinar to help us to improve for future and how we can engage better with you and how we can support you in your transition to a more sustainable future. The QR code is on the screen right there for you. Please zap it, take the questions and help us together to build a more sustainable future. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Huda and the team at the ADSG. Thank you to Joni at Sustainability to Action. We're very grateful to all of you for your support. Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sana,
Huda,
Luis.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.